In the final years of the Soviet Union, the military was a black box. On the outside, it was a symbol of superpower strength. On the inside, it was rotting. On February 24, 1987, that rot finally burst into the public eye in the most horrific way imaginable. The scene at Leningrad's Moskovsky station looked like a movie set. A special-purpose railcar, number 934, sat silent on the tracks. When officers entered, they found 8 men dead, scattered across the compartments. This wasn't the work of a foreign saboteur or a professional hitman. It was the work of one 19-year-old boy from Vilnius who had simply reached his limit. Arturas Sakalauskas was not a rebel. Born into a quiet, respected family in Lithuania, he grew up surrounded by books and classical music. In his hometown, he was known as the quiet one, polite, non-confrontational, and disciplined. When his draft notice came in 1986, Arturas didn't hide. He went to serve his country, but the Soviet military of the mid-80s was a dangerous social experiment. In the internal troops, VVMVD, young students were mixed with former criminals and hardened seniors who ruled by the law of the fist. This was Dedovchina, a brutal hierarchy where the strong fed on the weak.
To understand Arturas, you have to understand the environment. He was an intellectual, a European, from the Baltics. To the bullies in his unit, his politeness was seen as weakness. His accent was a target for mockery. He was an outsider from day one.
The tragedy occurred during a convoy run, transporting prisoners across the vast Soviet interior. For 2 weeks, a small group of soldiers was locked in a cramped, rattling railcar. No escape, no oversight.
They decided to break him. It wasn't just a few hits. It was a 24/7 campaign of degradation. They called it the bicycle, stuffing paper between his toes while he slept and lighting it. They beat him with bundles of heavy brass keys until his scalp split. They forced him to do the work of the entire unit while they slept.
The cruelty wasn't just physical, it was psychological. The unit's cook would purposely oversalt Arturas's food to the point of being inedible, then deny him water. He was forced to stand guard for 48 hours straight without sleep. By the time the train was heading back to Leningrad, Arturas was a walking ghost, hallucinating from exhaustion. The investigation highlighted one specific dynamic that haunted Arturas, his relationship with a soldier named Madzhanov. Despite being from the same draft, Madzhanov was the physical enforcer of the group's cruelty.
Madzhanov was from my same intake, but he was much stronger. He treated me like an inferior being, a subhuman. I tried to stay out of his sight, never responding to his insults. When he beat me, I didn't resist. If I did, he turned into a literal animal. When I found out he was assigned to my squad for this trip, my heart sank. I knew then, if it wasn't for Madzhanov, I never would have committed this crime.
February 23rd is Defender of the Fatherland Day. While the rest of the unit was celebrating with alcohol, the abuse of Sakalauskas reached its absolute zenith.
They dragged me into the toilet. Madzhanov and Jafarov, they were laughing. They began to beat me, and then they attempted to commit a severe sexual assault. I felt my breath leaving me. I lost consciousness. I felt my dignity, my entire life, being erased. At that moment, something inside me died, and something else took over.
This is what forensic experts call dissociative state, or narrowing of consciousness. Arturas waited until the guard commander fell into a drunken sleep, leaving the weapons safe unsecured. He didn't hesitate. He took 2 Makarov pistols. He walked into the sleeping quarters. The first shot took the life of Sergeant Slesarov, his primary tormentor. Then came the others. Arturas fired 46 rounds. He moved through the narrow corridor like a machine, reloading with cold, surgical precision. He even fired through the upper luggage berths where soldiers were trying to hide. By the time the magazines were empty, the law of silence in car number 934 had become the silence of the grave. In this system of violence, silence was the law, but some went further. The conductor, Dashkiev, became a symbol of the ultimate cynicism. While he didn't raise a hand against Arturas himself, he was an active spectator.
Whenever I was being beaten or humiliated, Dashkiev was there. He didn't help. He just stood there and laughed like a horse. My agony was his entertainment.
This laughter, echoing in the narrow corridor of the train, was the final proof to Arturas that there was no one left to appeal to. In the end, Dashkiev became the 8th victim, silenced by the same weapon that ended his entertainment. Arturas didn't run far. He spent 5 days wandering the streets of Leningrad like a phantom, sleeping in cold stairwells. When he was finally recognized on a public bus, he didn't fight. He handed over his briefcase full of weapons and surrendered.
When I first interviewed him, I saw a boy who was incredibly lucid. He told me, "I didn't want to kill, I wanted to stop the pain." But then, the system took him back. When I saw him again a few months later at Matroskaya Tishina prison, he was gone. He had a glassy, vacant stare. He didn't recognize his own mother. There are heavy suspicions that he was treated with powerful psychotropic drugs to prevent a public trial that would shame the military.
I have 25 years in this field, and I can say, this is a man of peace, not aggression. He was subjected to systematic torture, non-regulation relations, that pushed him past the point of no return. He endured until the very last millimeter of his sanity, and then his mind simply broke. It was a complete psychological fracture.
The Sakalauskas case became a lightning rod for the glasnost era. It forced the Soviet public to acknowledge the horror of Dedovchina. In Lithuania, Arturas became a symbol of the individual crushed by a dying empire. He was never sent to a firing squad. Instead, he was declared insane and spent years in psychiatric wards. In 1991, as the USSR collapsed, he was quietly moved back to Lithuania. Today, Arturas Sakalauskas is a man without a face. He lives in seclusion, reportedly under a different name. He has never sought the spotlight, and he has never given an interview. He remains a living shadow, a reminder that when you strip a human being of everything, the only thing left is the instinct to destroy the hand that holds the whip.